We welcome you to another live edition of the Sports Box, brought to you by our sponsor, Showcase Sports in Hamilton. Showcase Sports for the elite athlete. And by our friends over at CrowdPlay. Download the free CrowdPlay app today and check them out at www.crowdplayapp.com for details. Ladies and gentlemen, it's showtime.
Hey everybody, welcome to Cage My IQ. I'm your host D-Baked. Joining with me as always is my co-host Miles Long. How's it going, Miles?
Doing good. Pretty chill Monday. Had to cram a shit ton of assignments in Sunday.
Yeah.
So I crashed out, didn't wake up till 4, but I feel good now. Plus these are great. I don't know how long ago these came out. Have you seen these yet? The Ghost energy drinks?
I've heard of them. I haven't tried them yet, though.
They're really good. They're flavored like candy, and they actually kind of taste like it. Like this one is the Blue Sour Patch Kids. It's pretty good, actually. It's a good pick-me-up, and doesn't seem like look at that. No sugar. One of the few things you can find without fucking sugar in it. So try that. We're not getting anything for that, but that one's on the house.
Yeah. As you know, today we'll be recapping UFC Vegas 28, Jairzinho Rozenstruik versus Augusto Sakai. There's a pretty well card all in all. Nothing spectacular, and except for that knockout in the main event. And then most likely the play of the year candidate right now in the middle. But you can't hate. MMA's back. As you know, last week there was no fights, so we got to take the week off, which was interesting. I was gunning at the bit for MMA, but to have that weekend off was kind of refreshing.
I had assignments to do anyway, so I was like, oh, that works out beautifully, because I don't do anything leading up to it. I just kind of lazy around, and I'm like, fuck, it's only 2 hours. I'm not going to get anything done in 2 hours. May as well just watch the fights, and then I'll do it. So it's just an excuse for me to procrastinate.
Yeah. But before we get going with the recap of the fight card, just want to give a shout out to our sponsors. The first one we have is 99 Jersey. If you don't already know, we're now partnered with 99 Jersey, the number one shop of boutique sportswear in the U.S. Whether it's football, basketball, or baseball, 99 Jersey has you covered. Use promo code SportsBoxShow20 at checkout to get 20% off your next purchase. And don't forget to let them know Cage My IQ sent you. Once again, go to www.99jersey.com and use promo code SportsBoxShow20. And then our next one is Oddsjam. Oddsjam is the best place to learn how to make risk-free bets on sports. They have the Arbitrator Calculator, and you can find the best line to choose from to make the smartest bet around. Go to the link in the bio to get signed up on Oddsjam so you never lose a bet again. And then lastly, our last sponsor is High Tide Herbal. The owners are coaches and athletes who started this company to help athletes with wellness and recovery. All their products have CBD, and the goal with High Tide is to create an environment with conscious products that generate results. Go to www.hightideherbal.com and use promo code CageMyIQ10 at checkout to receive 10% off your next purchase. Don't be the last to purchase from High Tide Herbal.
So
and then, of course,
still gunning for that Adam and Eve sponsorship. If we get that one, I'll read that one.
I am chomping at the bit for them to get back to me. Then once again, as always, we are Cage My IQ, the best place for MMA content. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch at the handles to the left. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We do preview, recap videos as well as interviews. We're at over 108 subscribers right now. So our next goal is 200 subscribers. So help us get to that goal, and then keep commenting and following all of our content.
Based.
Yep. And now we're going to get started with the first fight in the card, which was added to it because of the Tom Breese fight getting pulled the day of. I didn't even know this fight got added until it was put on. I was like, what happened to this fight? And my buddy had to tell me, oh, yeah, they added it like 5 minutes ago to the main card.
Yeah, they had to in the broadcast, they were like, so this happened. Yeah. They had to talk about it. They didn't say exactly why the initial fight got pulled. Something about medical complications, but they didn't specify, so it's kind of unclear what happened.
But the first fight that was on the card was a women's flyweight matchup between Montana De La Rosa, who moved to 12-6-1, 5-2-1 in UFC, who defeated Ariane Lipski, who fell to 13-7, 2-4 in the UFC, and De La Rosa won by second round knockout. What did you think of this fight?
I mean, this definitely showed the weak points in Lipski's game that she desperately needs to address. But when she makes some adjustments, I think she can definitely keep climbing the ranks. As far as like the rounds went, the first round wasn't even really that great for her. Like, she started off good in the beginning. She had some good pressure in the stand-up, and she was mostly just keeping De La Rosa on her back foot. But then what happened was they both kind of backed off. Like she didn't keep the momentum on. That was the problem. Yeah. There was like 2 minutes of just nothing. They were just like testing each other out, feeling it out, but nobody was really taking the offensive. And then about halfway through the round, De La Rosa just rushed in, took her to the ground. And that was like the whole round was just her kind of controlling from the top position and raining down punches and elbows. And that real nasty elbow that opened up Lipski's forehead. And like, she was visibly stunned after that. You could see her like blinking and she seemed disoriented. She was still moving and countering and like dealing in the guard, but she was not 100% there. So I think in the second round, Lipski was like, all right, can't go to the ground again. That was real bad. That didn't work out in my favor. So again, she started off strong, but that was immediately taken down in like 30 seconds, like just immediately to the floor. And that was pretty much the beginning of the end. Because the problem is Lipski was too content just like trying to fight from her back and look for these submissions. Half of the submission attempt she was going for didn't make any fucking sense. Like trying that Kimura from the half guard where she's on bottom. It's like, where are you going to get the leverage to finish that? You're on bottom. That's not how that works. So, but the problem was she just was like, too much in that jiu-jitsu mindset, which he should have been like, all right, get back to the feet. She's giving me some space here, push, get the hips out, start getting the knees and get to your feet, do your wall climbs, that sort of shit. Didn't do any of that. Just stayed on the ground. And then that's when De La Rosa was able to avoid that very slick defense of the heel hook where she kind of turned the quarter and then just sat down into it. And then as she was sitting, she kind of span around and almost went into a full like knee on belly, but she sort of ended up in that side control. And then from that side control, because De La Rosa was too worried about submissions, she just took her time, got to the mount, and then finished it with ground and pound. And that was it. That was like I don't know. I think Lipski is just, she's got some skills in the hands and the feet, but she doesn't have that key middle piece that's halfway between like wrestling skill and just experience to know like, all right, fighting from the back tends to work against you unless you're really, really good at it. Like, Olivier or someone like that, who's got just credentials out the ass. But the problem is when most people try to fight from the back, you just get dominated. That's the problem, especially with De La Rosa, who's a very good wrestler. She's excellent to topside control. And if you're fighting from the back, you're just inviting that shit. So I don't know. I think she needs to definitely tune up the wrestling aspect because her takedown defense was okay on that first takedown because she kind of fought it. It was in the middle of the cage. She didn't have the cage helping her out. So, I mean, she did okay. But, I mean, the second one, very little resist. She just went down at the beginning of the second.
Gave up. Gave up, it seemed like.
So, yeah, she definitely needs to tighten up the wrestling and kind of bring it all together. But some of that is also experience. So, I don't know, maybe keep her in the mid-20s range where she is to kind of build some experience. And then De La Rosa, give her a shot at like the top 15 within I don't know, an Anatolia Shevchenko maybe, because she's like right on the cusp as it is. And
it seems like she just keeps improving each fight. Like I didn't expect the striking from her like this. Like it was just really good this fight. Mm-hmm. She's known for like the clinch and then the takedowns and her submissions, but like her striking was on point, especially those elbows. Jeez. Mm-hmm.
I think the ground and pound was really solid, but the standing game, if she wants to keep going through this division, it's still not where it needs to be. That's what I'm saying. Shevchenko, the sister Shevchenko, I think is a good kind of middle ground. She's not spectacular with the hands. She's not spectacular with the grappling, but she's like across the board mediocre. So I think it's enough to like where De La Rosa could capitalize on what she's good at, but also have a little bit of a challenge on what she's not so great at. You know what I mean? That's why I think it's a good
and they've been working with De La Rosa perfectly. They're not shooting her up too high in the rankings. They're just slowly moving her, and as she moves up, she improves just enough to get over the next person.
Right.
And it'll get to a point where she's in the top 10, and she might be a more well-rounded fighter than most of them in the top 10, except for like, of course, in number 1. But she's but that's what you want. Like, she's not exceptional in anything other than probably the ground. The ground's probably like her playground, but everything else is on par. It's average. It's good, and it seems to get better. And then that's what you need against Shevchenko. You need something, a little bit of everything. You need to overwhelm her a little bit, and but she needs to improve the striking definitely. But she has plenty of time to work on that. But in the stats here, you had De La Rosa, who had 66 total strikes. 29 were significant, 28 to the head, no body, 1 leg kick. She had 6 minutes and 52 seconds of control time and 2 or 3 takedowns, basically because the fight was on the ground 80% of the time.
All right.
And then you had Ariane Lipski, who had 37 total strikes, 11 more significant, 5 to the head, 6 to the body, no leg, no control, no takedown, and no subs. Basically, I'm not going to go too far because you basically explained a lot of it. Lipski came at her early, hit her with a nice shot, but then Montana De La Rosa was able to take her down with little ease. It took her like a few seconds to get it. The first one, like you said.
Yeah.
But once she got it, she had her down. Lipski wasn't going to get up. That's why she had 6 minutes of the possible 10, actually 7 minutes, I should say, 7 minutes of the possible 10 time on the ground. And she just, like the end of the first round, she was just landing shots on her. She hit that one elbow and it cut her open. And then they cleaned her up. But then she got opened up again because she got taken down at the end. And she was just controlling her. She just had her in different positions where she was able to minimize what Lipski could do to try and get up. And then she finally got on top guard and just was wearing at her. And then I gave her credit for lasting that long. But once she started throwing those elbows, I was like, this is game over. Yeah. She looked like she just got beat up, which she did, but it was bad. Yeah. It was pretty bad. And then she was like bloody all over. But I give her credit for being tough. Lipski just has a lot to work on. And she tends to be the person that she moves up and then moves back, move up, move back. She's not going to like go far because she's probably going to win her next fight because she's going to fight against somebody that she can beat. Right. Then she's going to move up again. And unless she can defend the takedowns and then get better in certain aspects, she's just going to lose again. She's going to be stuck in that same spot for eternity because she does this. Like I believe that she lost her last fight. Then she fought Luana Carolina and basically broke her leg and then won that. Lost the fight before that. It's just that's what you expect from Lipski. You expect the one win, one loss, one win. She's not shown you anything that she's improving, whereas De La Rosa has improved. And then you could say she did. She probably should have lost the Brenna Silva fight because Brenna Silva, it wound up being a draw because of the point being deducted. But she improved from that fight. She added to what she did, and now she looks better than Brenna Silva now, which I can happily say because I was hesitant going into that fight, and I thought Brenna Silva was going to win, and then late in that fight. She looked better. De La Rosa looked a lot better. But I was pretty happy with what she did, and I think she has a future possibly in the top 5.
Yeah. Yeah, she just got to keep working. I think her next probably big hurdle once I think Shevchenko is a good starting point because first of all, you got Macy Barber, Miranda Maverick. They're already tied up. I think Andrea Lee's already tied up with somebody. I don't know anything about Santos, but if she gets all the way to Grosso's like, she'll outstrike her, no question. Like she doesn't have as much ground experience as De La Rosa, but when it comes to the hands, if she can't get past Grosso's hand, she's gonna have a hard day. So I think it's kind of good to incrementally move her up with people who aren't as good of strikers, so she can practice blending all her skills instead of have her, fight a fight where she has to be pretty heavily on one end of her skill set and completely outclassed on the other.
Yeah, and with the top 15, I'm looking at it right now. Antonia Shevchenko is actually number 15.
Yeah, that's why I think it's a good.
14 and 13 are fighting each other. Maverick and Barber. Lee isn't doing anything. I think Santos has a fight booked. I'm not sure. And then Grosso's number 10. So that'd be interesting to see where they take De La Rosa next.
Right.
But it'll likely be in like September, October, because that's what they're working on now is fights to book in that range.
Nice.
Yeah. But let's move on to we got a comment from the MMA holes. Have a great show, boys. You too. They're coming on at 10 o'clock tonight, so definitely check them out when we're done. The MMA holes, great podcast over there, so check them out when we're done. But the next fight we got on the card is a matchup which was between Gregory Rodrigues, aka RoboCop. In the middleweight division, he moved to 10-3, 1-0 in the UFC. Who defeated Duško Todorović, who fell to 10-2, 1-2 in the UFC, and RoboCop won by unanimous decision. What did you think about this fight?
This was definitely a good showing for Rodrigues, especially when it comes to as far as debuts in the UFC go. I know that this matchup in particular, Todorović was just kind of outclassed. Like he's not bad. He's just not good enough to deal with a guy of this caliber. I had a 3-round just sweep. I had Rodrigues winning every round. In the first, they tended to start off they tended to go in sort of the same format where, Jesus Christ. That's the other thing I didn't like about this card. All the fucking names again. We had like 3 fight cards, 3 main cards on the last few fights where there was very easy names to pronounce. And then we get this one with a bunch of weird ass names. So I'm going to mispronounce Todorović. So Todorović started out really aggressive at the beginning of the first in the stand up. But about a minute or so of pretty even wrestling exchanges followed. And then Rodrigues got that crazy throw where he kind of had it was kind of like an outside leg reap sort of thing. I don't know. What's that? I don't know the Japanese term for it, but essentially you have a high grip around the shoulders, almost around the head, and you have a high grip on the elbow and on one of the arms, and you throw them over your leg. And it was almost perfectly executed, except, Todorović was bent over at the time, but he still landed it. But that was kind of one of the issues was Rodrigues couldn't keep him grounded. He had, I think, 3 takedowns the rest of this fight. Didn't keep Todorović grounded on any of them. So they just kind of ended up having a slugfest. Then the rest of the first, they just kind of went back and forth, a little bit more wrestling on the cage. And then Rodrigues started to take the initiative in the stand-up about halfway through the round or so. Now, one of the things I noticed right away is that Rodrigues is faster, and that was mostly why he was landing his shots, because he was just getting in before Todorović could react. And also he would want to lean away, which doesn't work if the guy's faster than you. You have limited range of motion. If they're just shooting in and you don't react in time, you just get hit. That's how that works. This remained true through the beginning of the second, where, Rodrigues just kept hammering away with those big shots. Again, secured a takedown. Didn't take him long. It was like a minute and a half into the round. He just, boom, took him to the ground again. I think that one was a double leg. But he didn't keep him grounded. Todorović just kind of worked his way back to the feet through the wrestling, and they went right back into the striking exchanges. It was almost like Rodrigues just wanted the points for the takedowns, but he didn't really care about the ground stuff. He's like, all right, I got my takedown for the round. Back to the
I think he just did it just to show something different. So he didn't just keep doing the same thing. Yeah.
But that was the thing. In that pursuit, he ended up doing the same format. Like, all right, we're just gonna punch, we're gonna wrestle, I'm gonna get a takedown, and then we're gonna go back to punching. And that's how it went like all 3 rounds. Like they were carbon copies of each other almost. But at the right around the middle point of the second, you could tell Rodrigues was getting tired. Like he was noticeably starting to get a little sluggish, a little labored, and his speed advantage pretty much like disappeared more or less. But he was still getting the upper hand in the striking exchanges just due to his technique alone. He had great evasion, great movement, and Todorović couldn't really land anything. Meanwhile, when Rodrigues would throw, he would try to like lean away, but he kept getting caught. Like he wouldn't get caught 100%, but he was getting clipped, and those were adding up. Going into the third, Todorović started out really aggressive again, but it was mostly because he was, desperate for a finish. But he was he lost all his momentum after the takedown defense or the takedown attempts from Rodrigues that ultimately didn't work, but they did get him to stop, throwing the aggressive punches and stuff like that, and gave Rodrigues the opportunity to more or less take control. And in the last minute of the fight was pretty cool. It was like a fucking slugfest, some back and forth. They were both trying to go for a big finish. Rodrigues into the round with that big elbow to the face. That was legit, but I had a clean sweep on this one. Rodrigues took all 3 rounds, in my opinion. But I think he definitely should be capitalizing more on his jiu-jitsu than he does, or at least than he did in this fight, because in this division, the middleweights, that's a very valuable skill. Like, let's break down the top 15 real quick. How many of them do you see as like really solid credentialed grapplers? Maybe 5-ish throughout the whole division. I see Hermanson, Costa Vittori, Brunson, Whitaker, Gastoline, but he's only like half a point because he never uses it. Weidman, but Weidman's still in recovery, so you don't even have to worry about him right now. Akhmedov and Tavares are pretty decent.
Yeah,
but like that's pretty much it. Now, how many really top-notch strikers do you have? Like pretty much all of them, like with the exception of like maybe 3 guys, but they're not bad. They're mediocre, but everybody in that division pretty much is solid in the hands. So Rodrigues doesn't have bad hands, but if he's going into that division, he needs to start, blending in the wrestling and the ground fighting, because that's something that not all of them have. The hands is something that's pretty much a common denominator across the whole division. So I think that's something he needs to look at in his training is, all right, how can I start integrating the wrestling and the jiu-jitsu stuff to really capitalize on what most people in this division, you could argue, are not very good at. Because I think if he does that, then he's definitely going to go pretty far. So play to his strengths. In the meantime, I think maybe give him a fight with Malcone, because they're both kind of in that 40s, 50s range, and Malcone would make him wrestle and do the jiu-jitsu stuff, so we can kind of see a little bit more of that expertise on display. Or maybe fast track him, give him a chance with Phil Hawes or Dolidze, who won his debut, or his his hug fest this and then he could kind of leapfrog one of those guys, or he could go up against Phil Hawes and lose, because Phil Hawes, that guy's pretty fucking good in the
he definitely improved with the last fight, as you know what we were talking about on that recap.
It would be a challenge. Damn.
I was disappointed in Duško in this matchup. A lot of people were telling me this week, you got to pick him. I'm like, why? Yeah. I was like I'm going with Gregory Rodrigues, and they're like, why? I'm like, did you watch him in LFA 2 weeks ago? He literally fought 2 weeks ago, and then took this fight on because I think he replaced somebody. It's either he replaced somebody or they add this fight late. Because he literally fought on LFA 2 weeks ago. And from what I saw was he's really explosive in his striking, which he was in this. He was quick with it. And then I was like, I'm going to go, like, my pick was like first round knockout, because I was like, he can hit him. I was like, this guy has a long neck. And I was like, he's either going to knock him out or maybe he'll submit him, but he needs to do it early because he's going to gas out. I saw they started gas out, which he started to do in the second round, but he didn't gas out like he did in LFA. He looked a little bit better. And then I think what helped him out was Duško was just a little bit slower than him. He was able to still throw at like a gassed out pace faster than Duško did.
Yeah.
And he showed a little bit more with the body shots, which was nice. because as you see here, Gregory Rodrigues had 73 total strikes. 71 were significant. He had 49 headshots, 19 to the body, 3 leg kicks. He had a minute and 25 seconds of control time, 3 of 5 takedowns, which were short on all in between, and no submission attempts. Whereas Duško Todorović had 46 total strikes, 37 significant strikes, 23 to the head, 10 to the body, 4 leg kicks, a minute and 26 seconds control, and 0 of 4 takedowns. So Rodrigues was able to defend the takedowns against him. Like, he showed a lot in this fight for taking it on 2 weeks' notice, which is why like a lot of people bet against him. That's why I bet for him, because what I saw in that fight, I was like, I can see him at least win the fight because of his explosiveness, which is what happened. And because Duško is a slow striker, and then he's more like a guy to use his length and clinching, and it just didn't work in this fight. And Gregory Rodrigues was able to get his second win in 2 weeks. He has holes that he needs to fix. He definitely needs to work on his cardio, which is a big one. But yeah, like, I don't see him fighting for a while, since it was just 2 fights in 2 weeks. And then the first one, I think it was ended in the second round. And then this one was all 3 rounds. So that's 5 rounds in 2 weeks in 2 fights. So I don't see him coming back until October, unless he didn't take too much damage to where he doesn't mind doing it. But before we get moving,
he ate some punches, though. That's the thing. He ate some shots. I think he's going to want to rest up for sure. But also, I think they're going to have an issue with matchmaking. Like, where do they want to take this guy? Because, I mean, he's right now floating right around the 50s mark, like high 50s, low 40s territory. So there's some busy guys down there. Like, you go up into the 40s, there's a lot of dudes who are already busy. Like, Eric Anders is booked. Some people I've never heard of are booked. Who else? Oh, Vera's booked. I've heard of Vera. A bunch of people I haven't heard of, but like, I don't know. There's some potential here with, if they want to really leapfrog him, maybe give him like a Julian Marquez. And I feel like Julian Marquez has power and the wrestling. That would be maybe a bit too much for him at this early stage when he's like fixing those holes. But I don't know. I feel like if he improves, he could do like a Kevin Holland or a Shaz Bazian to really test out his striking. But I don't know. We'll see what happens with him. But I think he's gonna be a good prospect. He just needs to get a little bit more experience fighting at this level, you know.
Yeah, but luckily he got this first win under his belt, got the debut win, and then he can work on it. And then I don't know what to expect from Duško now, because I think this is his second straight loss in the UFC.
It is.
He had a lot of promise coming in, and then he won the first fight and lost the last 2. So he's going to need to improve his speed, because he has the height, but
maybe give him Staropoli, because Strapoli's on a losing streak too. I think he lost his last 3. So, and I mean, he's pissed. He's so mad about this one. Like, maybe have them fight it out, and that might be a redemption point for Staropoli.
We got a comment from a buddy of mine, Jacob, Dan the Man. Thanks for tuning in. But let's move on to the third fight on the card, which was this was big time right here. I love this fight. This was a welterweight matchup where Santiago Ponzinibbio, who moved to 29-4, 10-3 in the UFC, fought Miguel Baeza, who fell to 10-1, 3-1 in the UFC. Santiago Ponzinibbio took the unanimous decision victory over Baeza, and most likely the fight of the year so far in 2021. What did you think of this?
I mean, this was a fucking throwdown in Figueiredo Moreno 1 style, like freaking Poirier Hooker style. You know, like that third round, they were just like laying the fuck into each other. And that's the thing. Baeza started off pretty good. I had him taking the first round personally, and then I give Ponzinibbio 2 and 3. But the reason I give Baeza the first was because he fucking was doubling down on those leg kicks. Because Ponzinibbio started off really aggressive at the beginning of the round. He was coming in with some heat, but those leg kicks were adding up quickly. and they got him to back off. Like, he was getting kicked hard enough and frequently enough where Ponzinibbio backed off, and he was like, all right, I gotta approach this a little more carefully. And that allowed Baeza to press forward and take advantage. And he really started putting the pressure on and started putting on some solid shots, especially with those teep kicks in the striking. And he pretty much took a solid win for the rest of the round with his striking performance. But in the second, it started out in a similar way where the striking exchanges were a little bit more back and forth. Baeza wasn't going as heavily on the legs, which gave Ponzinibbio the opportunity to kind of turn up the heat, put a little more pressure on him. And then probably around like a minute or so in, those leg kicks started to take their toll on Ponzinibbio, because you could notice he was like starting to shy away from him. He wasn't like digging in and taking them anymore. He would go out of his way to avoid them. And that guy gave Baeza the opportunity to start pulling ahead in the round. But then about 3 minutes in, Ponzinibbio landed some really hard shots, and you could see it on Baeza's face. He was like reeling a little bit. He was like, "What the fuck just happened?" And that was pretty much the beginning of the end. That like halfway point in the second, Ponzinibbio really started.
And then he did those couple of leg kicks that were just very effective that almost tripped Baeza.
Yeah, that was in the third where he almost like straight up broke Baeza's leg. Like, that was a really heavy shot in the third. Like, holy shit. Because, I mean, that third round was such a fucking slugfest, man. It was so just back and forth. It was almost hard to tell who was getting the better end of those exchanges. My gut told me it was Ponzinibbio, but like, I was thinking about from the judging perspective, I was like, those people who are not fucking fighters, they generally don't even know what they're looking at half the time. I don't know how they're gonna fucking score this round. This is such a fucking it was like, who's gonna be standing? It looked like they were about to just both do that like cliche movie thing where they both throw a cross and both land and knock each other out simultaneously, sort of thing. Like, it was nuts. But I mean, that was pretty solid. That's the thing. Ponzinibbio, he's had a long career. What's his record? Like 20. Hold on. It's like 28-4 or 29.
29-4 now. Yeah.
Yeah. Like something nuts like that. So, I mean, he's definitely been around. He's put on some solid performances. He's got a lot of great experience, and he's like right at the cusp of that top 15, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe give him like a Robbie Lawler or a Li Jingling. And, you know, maybe let him kind of leapfrog into the bottom ranks of the top 15.
Well, he did his last fight. He did get one. He lost to Li Jingling.
Oh, he did.
His last fight where he got knocked out.
Oof. Yeah, I mean, that's it. That's crazy. He got knocked out in the last fight, and then he puts on that performance. It's like, if he was going to get knocked out, that would have been the fight where it happens, right?
And then I had high promise for Baeza because of his boxing, which of course you saw in this. It's just that he gassed out as well, like just like Rodrigues. It's just that Rodrigues wasn't going up against a quick fighter like he is, but this was just. Geez, early on, like you said, he was coming and attacking with the leg kicks, which I'll get into in a second. A lot of them, and just like you said, he got him the back up, and he was able to land shots, and then he was able to pull out the first round. Then they started getting into that slugfest a little bit in the round two, and then Ponzinibbio started. The X factor for him in this fight was his jab. Ponzinibbio's jab was effective and useful. He started to use that in round two. And Baeza just couldn't do anything with it. He just kept getting picked apart by it, just kept getting hit. He didn't block it at all. And it took its toll on him because he started to get slower, even on top of the gassing out a little bit. And then the leg kick in the third round, he started to incorporate a little bit of that, and he almost tripped Baeza twice. And then you could see Baeza hobbling a little bit halfway through the third. You could tell that he was hurt because of it. So even though he threw a lot of leg kicks, they weren't hurting Ponzinibbio like they were. Like Ponzinibbio was hurting him with his 11 leg kicks. Like he had 3 leg kicks that were just very super effective and slowed down Baeza since he was hobbling. But then he was like, "Fuck it!" I was like, "I'm here to trade." Like, like he didn't care. I gave second round to Ponzinibbio just because of the jab. He was doing a lot with the jab, and Baeza kind of took the round off a little bit because he was tired. Then the third round, it was back and forth. There was like who am I going to go with? They're just trained shots. But then halfway through, I had Baeza, but then with a minute left, Ponzinibbio came in strong with a leg kick and then a bunch of more jabs. And he was the quicker guy. And then that's what stole the third round for him to me, was just the elusiveness in the last minute of that round. He put the good last impression on the judges with that. And then going into the stats here, you had Ponzinibbio, who had 122 total strikes, 121 were significant, 98 to the head, 12 to the body, 11 leg kicks. We're going to just take out the ground game in this matchup because there was none of that.
What was the point?
Then you got Baeza, who had 104 total strikes, 104 were significant, 36 to the head, 24 to the body, 44 leg kicks. And just like I said, we're going to just wash out the ground game and ground control. Right. Both fighters, I think it's okay for Baeza to lose this because he was, I think, 10-0. Yeah, he was 10-0.
He was solid,
and 3-0 in the UFC. So he's young. He's going to be able to learn from this, and I think this will be more useful now rather than later on if he were to get into the top 10 and fight somebody that would have probably done a little bit worse to him than Ponzinibbio. Ponzinibbio is he's not like 40, but he's up there. I think he's 35.
He's aging a little.
Yeah, he's aging a little bit. They're starting to give him like the young guns now, and that's his role now. I think he might get somebody good now. He might get somebody in the 10 to 15 range now. But Baeza's going to be up there. Baeza will be able to recover. He's going to have to go back. I like the diversity from Baeza. You see 36 head, 24 body, 44 leg. I love the diversity. It's
the
good
distribution. Like even when I don't have the body pictures, but I have the color pictures, and here they're like almost dead even distribution. There's like equally sized blocks for the head and legs. The legs are a little bit bigger, but then like that middle block is the smallest, but it looks almost symmetrical. Like it's very even distribution from him.
He was just his problem was just he needs to work on his cardio. He needs to defend a little bit better because that jab was just eating him up. Right. It took its toll. And if he can do that, he'll be good because his boxing is probably one of the best in the division. And then he's really quick. And then he's young. So
I'm not sure. Like I'm kind of worried that we're gonna have a Macy Barber situation, because I think in this fight the thing that beat Baeza more than anything, I think his will broke. He broke down mentally in that fight. He gassed a little bit, but he could fight through it. Like he had a game plan and it was good at the beginning. But I think what happened was once he started getting jabbed on, and like that jab was finding its home almost every time. Like I don't think he was expecting that. I think he got hit real bad in the halfway through the second. He was reeling a little bit, and then the punches were adding up. And in his mind, he's like, "What the fuck is happening right now?" And more so than his exhaustion, I think his mind just kind of went to a place like, "Oh man, shit, how am I going to win this?" I think his will broke, and that can be a lasting thing. It can last well beyond the loss of the fight. It depends on how he bounces back. That's why I think maybe give him Brendan Moreno, or not Brendan. Where's this guy?
Oh yeah, just give him the Brandon Moreno.
Alex Moreno. I mean, that would be not fair. Brendan Moreno's too small. No, give him Alex Moreno, because Alex Moreno's pretty fucking green. He beat Cowboy Cerrone, but Cowboy Cerrone's like ancient at this point. So honestly, I think Baeza would beat him easily. It'd give him like a good confidence booster that he needs to get like back on the right track. Moreno's still pretty freaking young, and for the amount of experience he has, this is as good as he's going to get. He's had like 20, more than 20, almost 30 fights. Wait, where's his record? He's he had a jump in the rankings. I think he's like close to the top 15, maybe in the 20s or so. There he is, around the like mid 20s or so. He's 19-7. So I mean, he's kind of peaked. Once you've had 26 fights, you've got a lot of ring time experience. But we didn't see a whole lot of promise from the Cowboy Cerrone fight. So it's like, if he needs someone to kind of springboard off of, I think that's a good option, personally.
Yep. But let's move on to the next matchup, which was a dull fest. We had a middleweight matchup between Roman Dolidze, who moved to 9-1, as you see here, 3-1 in the UFC. He defeated Laureano Staropoli, who fell to 9-4, 2-3 in the UFC. Dolidze won by unanimous decision. What did you see from this matchup?
This was so stupid. This was the dumbest fight on the whole card. They didn't even interview Dolidze after the victory. They didn't even want to talk to him. They're like, what the fuck was that? They just rushed over to the You're right. They just rushed to the next fight. They're like, we don't even care who you want to call out. Like, nobody wants to fight you right now. Like, he literally rode Staropoli to victory like a horse. Like, all 3 rounds went the same way. Dolidze and Staropoli, they'd kind of like trade a little bit, do some stand up. And then Dolidze would just kind of work his way around, take the back, get that rear body lock, and just control him the whole fight from back there. Not really do anything to him, not take him down, not like, press him against the cage and strike, not put him in the... Literally just rode his ass for 3 rounds. And Staropoli couldn't do anything. So, like, he took the round, but it essentially made all of the numbers in the striking completely irrelevant. Like, it didn't matter because it was just like, oh, he was just controlled the whole time. That's why the numbers are so fucking low. It's like 14-9 in the significance rate. Like, it's like nothing because there was no activity. So, I mean, it wasn't an exciting way to win, but of course, Dolidze still did win. And there is that component of it where, look, you're a fighter. Your job is to win fights. I get it. And at the same time, Staropoli, if he can't deal with a rear body lock, like if he's just hopeless, if he's completely helpless when you put him in a rear body lock, he's got a lot of fucking work to do. Certainly not going to go very far in this division, but Dolidze could have, showcased a little bit more variety. I don't want to see him going up against, anybody. I really don't think he deserves to be fighting up, is what I mean. Like, I think he needs to be fighting down, even though he won, because it was such a boring performance.
It was just a situation where he fought somebody that he should have won because the guy was too small, in my opinion.
Well, I think he was also kind of like, he fights MMA the way I play Injustice, right? Like, I always pick Aquaman. And the reason Aquaman's not even that good, but the reason I pick him is because he has one attack and I just spam that attack for the whole fight and I win. It's that one where it's like from the deep where he takes his trident and he like stabs the ground. And no matter where the other person is on the field, the water comes up and attacks him from below. If you just spam that, like, there's nothing the other person can do. It was kind of like that, except at the rear body lock. and rear body lock was less effective than Aquaman's from the deep attack on Injustice. At least that causes damage. So, like, I don't know.
Yeah. So I'm not going to go too much into this. I'm just going to say, looking at stats here, Dolidze had 52 total strikes, 14 significant, 9 to the head, no body, 5 leg kicks, almost 10 minutes of control time, 5 of 9 takedowns, no submissions, whereas Staropoli had 25 total strikes, 9 significant, 3 to the head, 2 to the body, 4 to the legs, and 50 seconds of control time, and 3 of 5 takedowns.
50 seconds.
Complete and utter bore fest. And there's nothing more to talk about this. This was just like which of the 2 bad fighters was going to win, and it was Dolidze. And I'm not going to waste any more time on this.
Yeah, this was pretty open and close. Staropoli was pissed, though. Oh, he was so mad. He was so mad coming off this fight.
I don't know why he was pissed, because there's nothing to be pissed about. You got your ass kicked.
I think he was mad because of how he lost. Like, I feel like if he'd been knocked out, he would have been like, I got knocked out. But the way he lost, he was like a turtle on his back. He just couldn't do anything.
Exactly.
It was hilarious. Did you see him try to start a fight with Dolidze after the third? He was like talking some shit. And the ref was like, go to your corner. Go to your corner. Oh, it's funny.
But let's move on to the co-main event of the evening, which was the first of 2 heavyweight matchups, which in this one we saw Marcin Tybura, who moved to 22-6, 9-5 in the UFC, who fought Walt Harris, who fell to 13-10 with 1 no contest, and 6-9 with 1 no contest in the UFC, which we saw Marcin Tybura win by first round knock TKO. What did you think of this matchup?
I mean, here's the thing. This one was actually kind of a banger. Yeah. And I don't think it went the way most people were expecting it to, you know?
I did.
Harris came out guns blazing. He looked really good. And here's the thing. He didn't gas. He didn't gas out in this fight, because I think that's what people were saying is like, oh, you know, he's good for like the first 2-3 minutes of the fight. And then, you know, he gets too tired and he can't do anything. His cardio was holding up. The problem is he had no fucking ground game, but his cardio was holding up. Like, you got to acknowledge he improved.
Well, to be fair, 2-3 minutes in was when he got taken down, so we couldn't really tell how his gas tank was, because once he gets taken down, he's like a fish out of water.
Well, like, he was defending though. Like, you could tell he wasn't gassed because he was putting up like a thoughtful defense. He wasn't good at it, but you could tell he wasn't like trying to rest by taking the bottom position and just laying there and trying to manage strikes as they come down. He was actually thinking like, all right, how do I get back to my feet? And that's how he actually ended up losing this fight. Is Tybura had him in side control. Harris was resisting and he was keeping him from, you know, getting a topside crucifix at one point. I think Tybura attempted that, and he was preventing Tybura from taking mount with his side control defense. And he saw an opportunity, so he exploded out of it to try to get to his feet, which put him into like a turtle guard situation. And Tybura immediately took his back. He didn't sink both his hooks in. He only got one hook in, and then he used a quarter Nelson to basically keep him from getting dumped to one side or the other. But that position allowed him to keep hammering away at Harris, who for a while was still putting up a defense. So he wasn't gassing. It's just he didn't know what he was doing. He had no fucking clue. He was in waters way deeper than he could swim. And that's ultimately why he lost. But I mean, he's a good fighter. He just is a one-note fighter. You know what I mean? Like, the hands are pretty much all he brings to the table. And it looks like his cardio has improved, but his Achilles heel, no wrestling ability, no ground game, like, at all. So that's what
which is crazy, because he's a guy that goes for takedowns in himself.
I don't want it. Why would you do that?
Like, that's his thing. Like, he goes for the striking, and then he goes for a takedown, and it's like, if you don't have any ground game and you go for a takedown and then you get reversed, you're fucked.
Why do you want to be on the ground? That's my question. Like, what seems so attractive about that?
But there's one thing that I really liked that Tybura did that I thought once he did it, I thought it was like game over. Like, he had him on the ground. He was hitting him a little bit. He was taking his time. He was patient. At one point, I think you kind of mentioned it a little bit. He got his one foot in on one side, and then he had the one shoulder of Harrison, so he had that locked in. So he basically had him like pinned down to where he wanted him. He was trying to go for a rear naked choke. He just couldn't get it for like a little while. And I was like, he's going to hold this position, just hit him here and there, because Harris can't go anywhere. And then at some point, Harris just flattens down. I'm like, why the fuck is he doing this? Now he's going to get jacked up. He gets him down, then he just starts wearing at him. I see Harris get back up. I'm like, he's going to do it again. Wear. Then he just gets him down and starts wearing with both hands and gets the stoppage. And I'm like, damn. But then he starts walking over to, I think, Harris, and then they're like, back up a little bit, back up. And then he goes to the cage and he's like, because he was a little tired. But he got the victory. And I think that was his 5th win in a row. I think it was. I think after like a so performance,
I thought he had
early.
Let me see.
It might be 3.
Marcin Tybura. I've got him right here. I can actually just go and tell you, because I know his last loss I think was Sakai. Yeah, Sakai was. Yeah, this is his 5th win. I thought it was 3 for some reason. Oh, it's because some of these guys are you know, who knows who the fuck they are.
Yeah.
Maxim Grishin. I haven't heard of them. Spivak. He did beat Spivak. That's when he started his winning streak. Yeah. And then he beat Rothwell and Hardy as well. And then, of course, Walt Harris. So this, is his 5th win. Interesting.
So, yeah, but this was a good win for him. I think Harris, he's almost going to be done in the UFC, I think, because he's just not improving when he needs to improve. It's the same old story, same old thing with him. You get him to the ground, more than likely you're going to win. Right. And if you look at the stats here, you had Tybura, who had 59 total strikes, four were significant, 2 to the head, 2 to the body, no leg kicks, 2 minutes and 18 seconds of control time off of 1 or 2 takedowns, and then he had no submission attempts. Then you got Harris, who had 23 total strikes, 23 were significant, 17 to the head, 6 to the body, no leg kicks, 6 seconds of control time, 0 takedowns, 0 submission attempts. For the most part, it was the first minute or so was the onslaught of Harris coming at him. Harris did catch him once. He did catch him once, which had Tybura reeling. But then he goes and tries to clinch him. And then that's when Tybura kind of took over and then took him down.
It was the knee. It was the attempt at the knee in that clinch. That's what Tybura caught, got that first takedown, forced the wrestling situation. And then it was like just a matter of time until he was able to wear him down with the wrestling, because wrestling tires you out. So even though Walt Harris did improve his cardio, I think he spent more energy that he was gambling than he thought he would with the wrestling. And then when he threw that kick, it was too slow, which Tybura caught. And then that big crazy takedown where he just knocked the leg out. There's no defense for that, really. You just go down. And that was what put Harris in that situation where he just couldn't figure it out. But, it's interesting that the heavyweights historically have not been a division of grapplers. Not really, anyway. But now the tide is shifting. There's a lot of really solid grapplers making their way into the heavyweights. You got Gane, Stipe, and Ngannou now. Looks like he's polished up his wrestling quite a bit. Blades, even Volkov's got a decent bit of wrestling. He's not as good as like a Blades or a Gane or a Stipe, but he knows his way around. You got Sakai, Abdu Rakhmedov, I think he's a Sambo guy, isn't he? And then you got Tom Aspinall. Who?
The Shamil guy?
Yeah, Shamil.
And then he's fighting Dawkins next.
Oh, interesting. Okay, that'll be a good matchup, because that's another thing. Kyle Dawkins is pretty decent on the ground, but we haven't seen a whole lot from Chris Dawkins. See if the grappling gene was also passed on to him or not.
Yeah.
I mean, it would follow that if they train, especially coming up as kids, they would have had similar experiences.
Who did Chris beat in his last one? It was Olynyk, right?
Yeah, Olynyk. Yeah. Olynyk, basically, he just struck Olynyk, because Olynyk, if you don't get to the ground, he doesn't win. That's pretty much how that goes. But
I know Harris was 8 and Tybura was 11. So most likely, and then Sakai was 9, which we'll get into in a second. But more than likely, Tybura will move up to 8. And then Harris will move down to 11, or just get taken off altogether, because I feel like that's going to happen. Then you got Shamil,
more or less, and maybe in the next year or two. Because again, he's just not equipped to compete in that division without a ground game or wrestling.
Yeah, and then Shamir's fighting Dawkins, and then we're going to get into Rozenstruik and Sakai in a second, and then we even have the Volkov Gane fight coming up. So
that's gonna be good.
We got some moving that's gonna be going on in the next 3 months, to where we're gonna be seeing a little bit different of the division. I'm just waiting until I see what they do next with Tom Aspinall. I'm waiting to see who they give to him, because
honestly, I think give him Harris, because Harris, first of all, Tom Aspinall doesn't mind standing and trading. And I think he could probably outstrike Walt Harris. Walt Harris is powerful, and he's got some technique, but I think Tom Aspinall has better technique. He's got a more diverse game. He's got the power. He's a young guy. He's got the gas tank to outlast Walt Harris, even on his best day. And Walt Harris is going to be moving down to probably at least 11, which Tom Aspinall, needs a springboard to get him into the top 10. Why not do that? Because Chris Dawkins is busy. Sakai just lost, so he could maybe go in through there. But going any further up, you get people who just came off a fight or are already booked up. So I think Walt Harris might be a good way for Tom Aspinall to kind of springboard into the top 10 and get a big name win on his record. So I think that'd be a good way to have Harris contribute to the division and on his way out. You know what I mean? Either that, or if he wants a way back in the top 10, maybe give him Kyle Dawkins after the Shamal fight. assuming he loses, then, maybe he can earn his way back in that way. But again, I think he's probably on his way.
Yeah, because the only other guy that I can think of, the only other guy I can think of is 11th ranked Ivanov. Who Ivanov, yeah. I'm not sure if he has a fight booked or not, but he might. But he's at 11, so he could probably sneak into the 10 with all the activity, because a couple of people are going to have to lose. They'll move down, and they got Aspinall who could move up. But yeah, now that we got these new guys coming in, if you look at it like a year or two ago, we didn't have Gon, we didn't have Dawkins, we didn't have Aspinall in this top 15. That's 3 guys right there that have been shuttled up into the heavyweight top 10 or top 15. And we'll make for new matchups because we've had not many because of the logjam up in the top 5.
Right. Which I'm actually interested to see what happens with Tybura, because if they do the flip-flop, then he's probably going to be sitting at around 8 at the highest, maybe 9 if they don't want to shoot him all the way up there. But he's definitely within spitting range of top 5, and that was his call-out. He said, I'm not a contender yet, but I want a fight that'll get me ready for that, so a top 5 fight. But who's he going to fight? I don't think he could win against any of these guys. Like, honestly, maybe Derek Lewis. I think he could beat Derek Lewis, but Gon, Blades, Volkov, Stipe.
Well, yeah,
I don't see it, because when you saw him at the beginning of the fight, did you see how he's moving? That weird, like, jerky movie, like his legs were almost locked out, kind of weird footwork, stance work he was doing there. Whatever the fuck that was, that needs to change, because guys like Gon, Blades, Stipe, even Volkov, they move pretty smoothly. Derek Lewis, he's a big dude, but he's getting better. He's getting more cardio every time. He's been talking about how he's changing his diet and his workout, so he's starting to move a little bit more fluently too. So you can't go out there like, oh, okay, let's fight. Like, no, I don't think that's going to happen.
Funny thing. He came into the UFC. He lost to Timothy Johnson, who is fighting for the interim heavyweight title in Bellator in a couple weeks. He lost to him. He went on a 3-fight winning streak. Then he lost to Verdun by decision. Then lost to Derek Lewis by 3rd-round knockout. Halfway through the 3rd. Then he beat Stefan Struve. Then he lost 2 straight again to Shamil Abdurakhimov and Sakai. And then since then, he's been on a 5-fight win streak. Like I said, beat Spivak, Grisham, Rothwell, Greg Hardy, and then now Harris. So more than likely, do you give him another guy to get a rematch, or do you put him against something else? Because you're going to have to do something with them. And I think we'll get into it in a second, because it has to do with the next fight as well and what happens in there. But let's move to the main event so we can get to that afterwards. But we had a heavyweight main event matchup, which we saw Jairzinho Rozenstruik, who moved to 12-2, 6-2 in the UFC, who fought Augusto Sakai, who fell to 15-3-1, 4-2 in the UFC, where Jairzinho Rozenstruik won by 1st-round knockout with 1 second left in the round. What did you see from this matchup?
I mean, this is the Rozenstruik we need to see more often. And this is the thing. The Sakai strategy is what cost him the Gon fight. And I guess he learned, because then they sort of switched roles, right? Like, he was not the guy who was like trying to go counteroffensive and, trying to just wait it out sort of thing. He was the guy taking the initiative, being the aggressor in the stand-up, and he wasn't going for like these big 100% power shots. He was just placing them. Like, he was throwing off those leg kicks, just working them, not super powerful, but fast. And that was one thing that is being pointed out in the Ponzinibbio fight, is that your leg kicks don't, especially when you're talking about like the calf area, they don't need to be super hard to cause damage, because of the muscle structures and the bone structures in the calf. They're a lot more fragile and a lot more bone on the surface rather than big muscle groups. So when you're snapping out those kicks, they can add up pretty quickly, even if you're not throwing them with a bunch of power, like you would have to do on like the thigh area, both on the inside and the outside. They need to have a fair amount of power to cut through that thick muscle and, reach the bone to really, rattle your structure. So Rozenstruik, he wasn't committing a ton of energy to these kicks, but they were adding up. They were definitely keeping Sakai, kind of keeping the distance away. And the striking would also keep Sakai on the back foot. So it was like the legs and the hands. Sakai had to find a way through that barrage, and he just didn't. He was more or less staying on the outside ring, kind of circling around, keeping his distance. And Rozenstruik kind of chased him down. And then at the very last fucking minute, literally the last minute of the round, Rozenstruik catches him with that lead hook follow-up rear cross, floors him, and gets the KO with 2 seconds left in the fucking round. Which, poor Sakai, man, if he had just stayed in there a little longer, if the ref had been a little slower, then we could have had a second round. And who knows, he might have had a comeback, a second wind, rethinking on the strategy. But that was it. He hit the floor. The ref called it like almost right away. And, Rozenstruik got the knockout. I mean, it was a pretty short story, but there it is.
I think there was one small thing that happened that changed things for Rozenstruik compared to his other fights. It was him controlling the octagon in the center. Instead of him letting the other guy dictate, he kind of dictated it. He moved forward. He didn't have to throw much. But he still dictated the middle. He was the one being the aggressor, moving forward half the time. He was just picking and choosing his shots. And then he would hit him here, he hit him there. But he didn't take any damage to the head. He was able to avoid a lot of that, as you see on here. I'll get into that in a second. But when he caught him, it was crazy because he was backing up Sakai. And as he was backing up, he hits him with that body shot. And then Sakai's moving on an angle, and then he just goes and hits him on the angle with I think it was the right hand first.
Well, he hit him with the
it was the left hand. It was the lead
he was
hand.
running away.
He was doing this. He caught him, and then he came with the overhand right, and then just knocked him down. He was on the ground, and then he just went boom, boom, boom. And then he could have hit him more, too. The ref waited a second, and he could have knocked him out even more. Like he was knocked out anyway. He needed to be helped up from that shot. And that's the thing with Rozenstruik. He's kind of like a what should I say? He's a puzzling fighter because he does that kickboxing counter style, but then he has knockout power that rivals Francis Ngannou. Like he doesn't like Francis Ngannou like puts all of his might into his shots and he just knocks you out. Jairzinho Rozenstruik doesn't even look like he hits you that much and you just fall down, which is crazy. It's like he's calling for the gods when he shoots for a strike, and then the gods give him all the power of like Zeus. And then he just knocks him out. Like, I don't get it. Like,
well, that's the difference in technique, really. Like, that's what it is. Like, Rozenstruik, he came from a kickboxing background, which kickboxing, you don't have a way to, like, hold someone in place and beat the shit out of them like you do like in Muay Thai, for example. Muay Thai, they allow you to clinch. Well, no shit. You can, like, wreck somebody real bad if they're this close and you can elbow them and knee them. Like, yeah, you can really do some significant damage. In kickboxing, there's that distance. And they brought it up in the commentary. They're like, well, in kickboxing, the other guy can't like grab you or take you to the floor, do ground and pound or and none of that. So it's a different skill set fighting from that striking range. And a lot of kickboxing happens at long range, mostly your legs. Then you move into the hands. And Rozenstruik's good at that. And that's why I think he tends to favor the counteroffensive, because he's waiting for the other person to mess up. Like he's feeding them enough rope for them to hang themselves with. The problem is people have gotten wise to it and they're like, oh, I'm just not going to do that. I'm just going to hang out back here, piece you up for the rest of the round, just like Gon did, you know? And when he takes the initiative, though, he's got enough power to like finish a fight. He just needs to do that more often. You know what I mean? Like he's been way too lackadaisical for too long.
Way too shy and passive, like he was in the Ngannou fight. Like Ngannou fight right away, he started moving back before anything was happening. He should have been the one pressing forward against Ngannou, because then you take a little bit of the power away from Ngannou, because Ngannou likes to move forward and then strike. He gets a little bit of that torque.
If you're already is Ngannou, it doesn't have the same background, so the way he generates power completely different from the way Rozenstruik generates power. Ngannou has to generate it as a layman, which most people who have no idea how technique or body mechanics work, they just throw with their body and let the momentum take care of it, which that you can generate a shit ton of power doing that. But Rozenstruik doesn't need to do that, which gives him a big advantage because, like you said, it doesn't look like he does much because he doesn't really have to. Like, he just lets the technique take care of it, and his natural strength kind of reinforces what he's doing, which means he can do it faster, fewer openings, and he can do it in quick succession. Whereas Ngannou, being the more kind of layman learning the striking, he has to like swing real heavy, costs more energy, it's slower, creates more openings, and after a big swing, you got to reset. So it's hard to do like big swing, like it's kind of harder to keep that pace. So I mean, I feel like tools. He's got
I feel like if he had a different game plan, say like he shoots forward on Ngannou, and then Ngannou tries to throw a shot and he avoids it, he can use one of those shots where he counters the throw, moves over and then shoots and punches him. He can put damage on Ngannou, but instead he fell back into that. It's Ngannou. Let me fall back, and then he got caught because he was moving back, and then Ngannou was pushing forward. Right. And it went away from his game plan, and he got popped in the first 30 seconds because of it. Whereas if he was controlling the octagon, it probably would have been, I wouldn't say he would have beaten Ngannou, but I say it could have been a completely different fight that could have lasted a lot longer because he would be trying to control the middle and not let Ngannou use that momentum to move forward because he's the one that's doing it. And then he would be able to counter a little bit better. But he did that in this, he didn't take that. He only took 3 shots, and the 3 shots were 1 body and 2 leg kicks. So he didn't take any to his head. So I feel like he can come on. He could probably take a fight next month because that's how it was. That's how it was. If you look at it here, Rozenstruik had 16 total strikes, 16 significant, 6 to the head, 5 to the body, 5 to the legs, 2 seconds of control time, 0 takedowns, and 0 submissions. Whereas you have Augusto Sakai, who had 3 total strikes, 3 significant, no head, 1 of 4 to the body, 2 of 5 to the leg, and then none for the takedown, control, or submission. But this is just one that was just like, geez, he needed this. We need to see this from him because of the last 2 fights. He beat, last 2 fights, I should say, because he lost to Ngannou the way he did, and then he went the distance with Gane, but I wouldn't say he was shy.
He got pieced up.
I wouldn't say he was shy. I just think he was too passive in that fight where he was letting Gane dictate the center and then get his game plan going of just in and out, and just hitting. And then he couldn't get into a groove. And then by that time, he was already losing. And then he was trying to, in the 4th and 5th round, he was just trying to knock him out because he knew he had to.
Right.
But I see him getting this win, then which in the heavyweight division, he was 6 and Sakai was 9. So there won't be much of anything with that.
Yeah.
I think with Gane fighting Volkov, which is the 3-for-5, I do see a path to where he could fight Curtis Blaydes.
That's what I was thinking too, because Curtis Blaydes isn't doing anything, and he's sitting on that loss against Lewis.
He's sitting on that loss with Lewis. Rozenstruik was able to fight this fight 1 round, didn't take any damage.
He's fine.
Came out basically unscathed. He could come back in a month or 2 easily if he wanted to. You put him into a fight with Blaydes, who's probably going to be chomping at the bit to get active again because you got the whole division in the top 10 active but him. And then with Gane fighting Volkov in a couple weeks, you don't know what's happening with Stipe yet. Who God knows what's going to happen with him. And then more than likely, it's going to be Lewis and Ngannou take 2 because John Jones saying he's more likely not going to fight again until 2022.
But I heard Ngannou saying he didn't want the Lewis fight because it came up, and I heard he would was like, no, been there, done that. But I don't know.
Yeah, which I don't know. He lost to him, so
he did. But I guess he thinks like I'm good. Like I don't need to fight him again. I'll just beat him. I think he's really more invested in the Stipe rematch because, I mean, he's got more skills now to where I think a fight against Derek Lewis would be pretty one note. Like if Ngannou uses that new wrestling and grappling ability, Derek Lewis won't really have any answers. He barely had an answer to Curtis Blades, which was a technique, not a strategy that just happened to work. But I don't think it'll work again. You know, I think Ngannou saw that fight and be like, oh, okay, cool. So don't just run in there.
Well, luckily for him, moving forward, he's not going to face a guy like that because he's really up in that section of the top 10. Yeah. He's the only guy that does it. So, and he has the victory over him. So, unless he can get the belt and then Blades can go and move up, he won't have to worry about that. But he's going to definitely have to have that in the back of his head. I got to improve on this.
Oh yeah,
but
it doesn't exist right now. Like it's non-existent. His wrestling ability, like honestly, Lewis has the tools to, or Blades has the tools to beat Lewis. He just used them completely incorrectly, but he could have won. But it was more his own fault.
You got 2 cents chiming in. Sup champ, sup Miles.
Yo,
we did two. I did 2 tournaments this weekend. The first one was 2 cents' rain dance. He called it. We had 7 guys pick the whole card. Yeah. You had to pick it. I won that with a 9-3-1 record. And then I did another one, which had, I think, 10 people in it. And then I won that one.
Nice.
Because of the Tybura fight. I picked Tybura and the other guy picked Harris. So I got that. So I'm called earlier on before I switched it, I had my name Double Champ, which is why So I'm going to be defending the Rain Dance title this week, which is going to be taking on all challengers. Like we only had 7 last week, and I'm hoping for 20-something people. So if I win again, there'll be no excuses because I only beat 7 people this week. But that was fun. But like Rozenstruik, like I said before, I could see him fighting Curtis Blades. That'd be a perfect matchup for the both of them. You got Blades coming back in; he's going to want to take a fight, and with the Rozenstruik, that's a move up for him, 6-4. So he's going to fight that because Volkov is 5. He's taken care of with Gane, which is 3. Mm-hmm. Rozenstruik's not going to be giving Lewis, of course. And Stipe, more than likely, is going to chill for a while. And then we got John Jones, who is the wild card.
Just holding everything up.
Who's been in the heavyweight division for over a year and hasn't fought yet. So
I don't know, because I could also potentially see, like, it depends on what Curtis Blades wants to do, because I don't think Curtis Blades wants to fight down. He might have to, but I think he'll hold out for a while, maybe long enough for the loser of Volkov Gane to like be like, hey, you know what? We'll take Rozenstruik, whoever that happens to be. They could maybe, go in through that direction, depending on how much Curtis Blades wants to dig his heels in and not fight down. But I think ultimately he's just not going to have a choice. Because again, Lewis doesn't want to fight down either. He's tired of constantly being like, okay, one more fight and then you can get a shot at the title. He's like, no, fuck you. That's been like the last 4 fights. Like, I want my title shot now, which is why he wants it so bad with Ngannou. But I don't know if Ngannou wants to play ball on that. So,
because as you see right
all
here,
kinds of traffic jams.
Everybody that didn't know what we're talking about, here's the top 15 to the left: Stipe, Lewis, Gane, Blades, Volkov, Rozenstruik. You got Shamil. That's likely to just stay as it is.
Probably.
Yeah, Harris is 8, so he'll likely swap with Tybura. So it'll probably be Tybura. I'm going to go out and say Tybura, Darkus, Sakai, because I think Darkus is going to jump Sakai with Sakai losing the way he did. And then Darkus is going to fight anyway, so he's fighting the 7th-ranked Shamil, so it could move up if he wins that one. Then you got Imamov. Then you would have Harris, then Aspinall, Pavlovich, and then Olenek. If this is just me, but I think they should just take Harris off to be all together, like I said before. But to me, I think you would put Aspinall ahead of Harris because Harris is he's at an all-time low right now.
Like, but Aspinall, he hasn't fought in a while, so they probably won't just because there's been some time elapsed.
They'll probably have him ahead of him. And like you said, we could get an Aspinall Harris or Aspinall Ivanov, whichever happens. I know he's going to want to get booked. So I don't know with Harris. Maybe Harris because there was only one round, so he didn't have to do too much. He just got his ass kicked in the second half of it after his barrage.
Right.
But I think he could come back on like a month or two notice because of that.
Well, I mean, he got grounded and pounded, but I mean, it wasn't like, he didn't get hit by Rozenstruik. You know, mostly just he stopped defending, but Tybura wasn't really hitting him with a ton of power. It's just the volume that he wasn't. And plus, he had no idea what the fuck he was doing getting back to his feet. So that was the other reason I think he eventually just shut down.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I can't get out of this no matter what. So maybe just try to weather the storm and maybe I can make it to the end of the round. But the ref is like, we're not waiting for that. This is over.
Yeah. So. But that's my thoughts on the state of the heavyweight division. We got fights coming up. They're going to be good. You can always use a good heavyweight fest to watch on a card. Right. Like I always say, at least have one on them, so you get that fight because the heavyweights, they're all about like just showing out and knocking each other out. But then you got a couple of those guys that are in there that would be contrasting. Like to me, Blades can knock you out, but he's more so going to be all about the ground game. That's what I'm
saying. Like the division has changed so much. Like how many people? Let's count. Olenek can do ground stuff. Aspinall for sure. Tybura, Sakai, Shamal, Volkov. Even though he's not like a wrestling background, he's big enough and he has enough skill to where he can stand with a lot of wrestlers. Blades, Gone, Stipe, and Ngannou. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 out of 15 right there in the top. That's a lot of grappling. That's never been the case in the heavyweights. There's been a bunch of big ass dudes slugfesting each other. You had briefly, well, no, even then there was still more grapplers. I was going to say when DC came in and took the belt from Stipe, he was like in the light heavy, which there's usually been like a decent mix of strikers and some grapplers in there. He was like a sort of the in between. He had a wrestling background, but he liked to hang out in the clinch. But even then, when he took the belt from Stipe, there was still a fair amount of like wrestlers and stuff. It's just you go back to the earliest days of UFC. I mean, there was not a lot of wrestling. Big Country was in the top 10. All right, Big fucking Country could make it to the top 10. Big Country wouldn't even be on the map in this lineup. There's no way. There's just too many people who could like choke him out or put him up against the cage and make him help.
So here's my prediction right here. I feel like eventually it's going to be Derek Lewis and then Ngannou. I think it's going to happen. It's just a matter of when. And I feel like the winner of Gane Volkov, which I'm calling now, Cyril Gane's going to win that. I think.
Fortunately, I think so too. I like Volkov, but I think Gane is a little bit more polished. Plus, he knows his way around the ground. Volkov doesn't. Volkov reminds me a lot of like watching Israel Adesanya when he's on the ground. He can resist and problem solve to a basic degree, but he really doesn't know what he's doing. So I think,
but I could see like an interesting matchup there where they pick Gane and Stipe.
Possibly. I mean, it depends on the money decision, right? Because I think the money decision is Ngannou Stipe again, especially if John Jones isn't doing anything. They're like, well, people will pay to see another, rematch with Stipe because historically that's when he comes back. Yeah. He'll get beat and then he'll come back super strong. So
but how long is he? But how long would he sit? Because realistically, with Jones saying he's going to be out into 2022, he said like January. He said that's when he'll be realistically fighting because of the money issue. Likely it's going to be Lewis to me right away because he's waiting, he's ready to go. Say they have that fight happens. Whoever wins that next will be John Jones.
I think John Jones probably going to the back of the fucking line. I think Dana White's like kind of tired of him. And he's like, you know what? You're lucky I'm not making you fight
so.
from the bottom, work your way up. Like your ass is at the back of the line.
I hope so. I hope. Like I said all along, I think they have to give John Jones a tune-up fight.
Mm-hmm.
And they had to do it. Look at Dillashaw. Dillashaw was a champion. He gets suspended, comes back. They're like, you're not getting that rematch that you should have right away. You need this tune-up fight. And he was like, okay. And now he's fighting Sandhagen, which with what's happening in that division, it might wind up being 2 fights before he gets that. Not his fault, but because of the holdup.
I think Josh Jones is a bigger crowd pleaser than I think he's more of a fan favorite than Dillashaw is. That's probably why they're letting him, be first in line or definitely further up the line to get a title shot, even though he's just entering the division because they know it's going to be a money fight. Regardless of who he goes up against, it's just now there's like this top 3 spot kind of weird limbo. Like, what the fuck do you do with these guys? Because Lewis wants Ngannou, and Ngannou's like, Stipe wants Ngannou, but we don't have any information on how that's moving. But I think the money decision would be that one, and then maybe Lewis gets a shot at whoever wins that one because he's tired of fighting down. He wants his shot. And then we've got the Volkov-Gane decision to settle. I think that'll probably be third line, the winner of that. Because and then maybe give Rozenstruik the loser of that. That's what I'm thinking, maybe pop him in, or Blades, but I don't think Blades wants to do that. And I think he'll be a child and kind of go, no, because I think he wants 5th spot, but does he deserve 5th spot? That's the question.
But and then I think, Blades beat Volkov already. That's where he just like took him down like 15 times and did nothing. And then, but he has to fight Gane. So unless Gane is sitting for a long time, I bet Blades will be like, oh, he's sitting for this long time. I'll fight him. Like he just beat Volkov. So Volkov, I already beat him. I'll take Gane. But then Gane's probably like, oh, I'm at 3 and I just won.
What would be the point? I'm just gambling my spot.
And, at that point, give me one of these 2 guys, Stipe or Lewis. Whoever's not fighting Ngannou. Right. Which I could see happen. So
I mean, I could see like how Gane might just end up fighting Blades because one, he is pretty new to the division. So like he's got big name wins, but he doesn't have that long record of beating a bunch of dudes in the heavyweights. He's not like, Israel Adesanya where he's like gone a turn or fuck, who am I thinking of? Hold on, let me scroll up. Usman, who's had like a turn with everybody in the division, So I think he's got limited sway at this point because he's so new.
To be honest, and like to his rebuttal, he did have 2 more guys that he beat in the top 10. They're just not there anymore because they're not in UFC.
Right, that's fair. But I mean, I feel like if Gane wants to like, oh, I want Lewis or Stipe, I feel like Dana White will be like, though that's my number 1 and my number 2 slot for the title shot. I think John Jones is probably like 6th in line for that
number
shit.
2.
Yeah, I think fucking John Jones is going to be waiting back there for a while. Even when Jenny's like, I'm ready to fight. Dana White was like, yeah, I was ready last year. So like, sorry, man, we have to get through Gane, and we have to maybe like play around with the idea of Rozenstruik or Blades, and then you can have like after that. I think that's probably what's going to end up happening.
But because of that, this is why the log jam's happening because of stuff like that. Like you're going to have all this log jam guys fighting, and you want to see them all fight, and then you're going to let them like you can't let them dictate. He just needs to be like, yo, you're fighting this guy and you're fighting this guy. It was like it's just happening. We can't have you guys just be like, oh, I want to hold on to my 4th spot because I'm waiting 4 months to see what happens between 2 and 3, and then 1's not doing anything right now. So, and he doesn't want to fight me. So I'm just going to sit here and wait.
Right. Well, I think that's also kind of Dana White's fault because like like Lewis, for example, he kept saying, all right, one more fight and then you'll get your title shot. Okay. One more fight. You'll get your title. Now Lewis doesn't trust him anymore. It's like, fuck you. No, like I'm going to be gambling my number 2 spot for the next potential shot at the title that you promised me like 4 fights ago. Fuck you. I want my title shot now, not later. And I feel like he does that a lot with fighters in the heavyweights. You know what I mean?
Especially the one title shot he did have. It was on like 2 weeks notice where he was just like, yeah, sure, why not? So he didn't really prepare. And that's before he had the nutritionist and whatnot. So he just got ragdolled by Cormier.
Right. So I feel like in the heavyweights, especially in that top 5 spot, nobody really wants to fight down because they're like, if I fight down, there's no guarantee that even if I win, I get my shot. I'm really just gambling And if I win, I stay where I'm at for a while. So like, what's the point? You know what I mean? Like there's no payoff. Even if I win, all I'm doing is maintaining. So the result is effectively the same. You know what I mean?
And then Gon's, especially with Gon, he's fighting down 3 to 5. So
I think it's because he's new. He needs that experience. So he's a big name win. So to be fair.
He's fighting down. It's keeping him active because he's going to be waiting a while. He gets that win. He's probably going to be like, hey, I just fought down for you. A guy 2 spots down for me when I should be fighting up. I did that for you. It helped me stay active. Now there's a log jam. You got these 2 guys in front of me. You book them or book me against them. Do one of them. But like I did everything you want me to. Like he fought up, came in right away. He fought a couple guys outside the top 15. Then they threw him right into like the top 10, like out of nowhere. They're like, they're like, what was it? It was like Junior Dos Santos. It was
hold on, I can pull it up. Because he went up there super fast.
It was quick.
Cyril Gane. Because he's only had like what? Less than 10 fights in the UFC for sure. I think he's like somewhere around 5. Yeah, that sounds about right to me. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the UFC. He had Dos Santos and then 2 guys who were like low ranked. Boser, Mayes. 3 guys. Posa. And
Boser just lost to Latifi, which was an iffy decision. A lot of people were mad that Boser got lost that fight because they thought he outstruck him. So he fought Dontel Mays. Well, he fought Pessoa. He fought Dontel Mays, who I think he's in another promotion now. I think it. Let me look.
Oh shit, that was Mia versus Askren. That was a while ago.
Yeah,
damn.
Then he beat Boser, then Junior Dos Santos, and then Rozenstruik. So like 2 guys that were in that top 10. Like boom. Yeah, I think at the time Dos Santos was like 8. At the time that they fought.
He was up there, yeah. And then he got released.
And then Rozenstruik was the 4th spot where he's at now. So like they're like boom, boom, boom. Yeah. Whereas like Aspinall and Dawkins had to like do like the long game. He was just like, it's crazy to look. He's only had 8 fights
in his entire career. Like that was before the UFC too. That counts those because he only had 5 in the UFC. Which
I think he's had like a bunch of Muay Thai fights. Never mind. He did 7-0. 7-0.
He had 1 successful title defense in the French Muay Thai League, but he was not super active in that career. It's just he got picked up really fast. But he had a decisive career. You could say that. He had a perfect record in Muay Thai. 5 KOs, 2 decisions, so mostly finishing his fights. So he hasn't had a loss in his professional fighting career. If you count the 7 wins in Muay Thai and then the 8 wins in MMA, he's at, what's that? My math sucks. 16-0 or... Yeah, 16-0.
Yeah, 16-0. No, 15-0.
15-0. Damn it, I knew my math sucks. I knew it. But he's doing really well. It's just, he's still very new to the UFC for sure. So I think he doesn't necessarily mind having to fight a bunch of these other guys because it's like, well, that's just more experience for me, especially these top tier guys like Volkov. I think eventually Blades will want to put enough pressure to get that Gane fight. I think Gane might be open to it because he's like, hey, if I can beat Blades, I mean, he's got the wrestling, he's got the ground game, he's got the strike. If I can beat Blades, I can beat Lewis. If I can beat Lewis, then I mean, I could probably stand my own against Ngannou, who's got that crazy striking power like Lewis does. So I feel like he wouldn't necessarily be opposed to fighting, Blades after Volkov, possibly. There's no reason to go back to Rozenstruik, but I think at this point, because he climbed so fast, he missed some of that cultivating opportunity that Aspinall and Dawkins have gotten that he just kind of missed out on. So I don't know. It depends on where his mind is, but I think Blades is reached a point where he's like kind of like I don't want to say entitled, but I think he's just tired of not getting his title shot or having to fight down, I would say, because he had to fight down for Lewis and he lost. But I think Gane might be the next best choice for him if he has to do a match before he gets his spot in line for the title shot.
Yeah, but that'll wrap up this recap of UFC Vegas 28. Before we get going, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention last night's exhibition between Logan Paul and Floyd Mayweather.
Oh God, I didn't even know that was happening. God, let me guess. Did Mayweather win? He won, right?
Well, no one won because it wasn't sanctioned.
What the fuck? What the fuck? How'd you fuck that up? What the fuck?
Okay,
the one thing you got to do to have a boxing match, and you don't even do.
So it was basically a glorified sparring session. But the best part, was the top two sponsors were DraftKings and Cash App.
Well, that makes sense.
So how you can have DraftKings as your sponsor, but you can't bet on the fight because it's not sanctioned?
It's so stupid. So dumb. So dumb. Oh,
but
God.
basically it was Mayweather just outstriking him. He was just
no shit.
I will say Logan Paul did have a good I think it was a left hand or right hand shot. I forget which it was on Mayweather, but other than that, he got gassed in round 4.
Well, yeah.
But it went all 8 rounds. But like I give it to Logan Paul, like he probably knew he was going to get beat, but hey, he's getting paid $20 million or whatever it was
to did it, yeah,
to do it. And then he was very nice afterwards. He was like, "I feel gracious to share the ring with Floyd Mayweather, one of the best." He was like, "Let's do this again."
Between the two brothers, I would say he's probably the better one in terms of skill, for sure.
Well. Like I was saying all along, these guys aren't taking fighters that they should that actually box. But then Logan Paul goes, "Oh, let's get in the ring with Floyd Mayweather." I was like,
Logan
"Okay."
Paul has been fighting boxers for a little while. Like they're not anybody who's like super special, but they're boxers. Meanwhile, you got fucking the other Paul. What's his dumbass name? I can't even remember. He's so fucking insignificant.
Jake Paul.
Jake Paul's calling out a bunch of people who are like either really old or they're not boxers. Like those are the people. Like Michael Bisping was saying he was offered a purse to fight with Jake Paul. But Michael Bisping is like 42, 43, like way retired. Like, of course he's not gonna fucking fight. He wanted who else did he want? He wanted of course DC. DC's more of a wrestler than a boxer, so he seems to be going after people who he knows he can beat because they don't box or they're really old, so they can't hold up the same as they used to in their fucking 20s and 30s. So it's like, do you want to be a boxer or do you want to just play pretend? Because at least your brother has the balls to actually box with boxers. You just want to like play pretensies with FIFA guys and basketball players and wrestlers. Like that's the only people you seem to want to fight. So it's like, what's the point? You know what I mean? That's why it's so dumb that he's still doing this shtick. But anyway.
Yeah, but basically a lot of people were just on my thing where they were like, I didn't even pay to watch this, and I feel like I deserve a refund.
I mean, you did pay for Logan Paul, so you get what you pay for.
But I give him all the credit though for doing it, and for a name like Mayweather, and Mayweather still looks strong doing what he does. He just like in the sparring section, I'm gonna call it that. They only did 8 rounds, and he looked kind of flustered only because of the height. And then Logan Paul would just come in and hold him, so he couldn't really showcase everything. But
kind of like the Pacquiao fight.
Yeah, but hey, he made a bunch of money doing it, and he'll probably do it again because Mayweather knows how to market himself. So. True
that. And he's built a reputation. You know what I mean? He's definitely earned his reputation throughout his career.
He's earned the reputation of being one of the best boxers and then bettors, because he'll come out and be like, "Hey, I bet on this and this and won millions." I'm like, "Jeez." I was like, "What guy are you hiding in your corner that is telling you what to pick?"
He's in the Sicilian mafia's pocket, and he's just like asking, "All right, who's going to take a fall this week? Who'd you pay off?" Like it's the 30s or some shit.
Yeah, but I wanted to mention that before we got ready to go, and then I also wanted to mention that this Wednesday or Thursday we'll be releasing. Me and my buddy Jim will be releasing the UFC 263 preview. 2 belts,
such a banger. Such a banger.
2 belts, 2 rematches. Who walks away champ? And you got 3 5-round fights. It's going to be crazy, and I'm looking forward to. Yeah.
I just straight up told my mom, like, she goes out to watch these with me. I'm like, we're not getting back till like 1 o'clock in the morning. Just be ready for that shit, because they scheduled a 5-round fight that shouldn't be a 5-round fight. So dumb,
but awesome, that would end the show for tonight. The UFC Vegas 28 recap show, and then I
got one. The Ultimate Fighter recap. We had episode 1 last week. Episode 1. I can do this in about 2 minutes. Not a lot happened.
Yeah.
It's pretty straightforward. They picked the teams, and you kind of saw how the coaches would interact with the fighters. They look like a decent group right now. You didn't see too much. It was mostly focused on the 2 guys picked to fight in the first Ultimate Fighter matchup, which was, these 2 guys' names were Andre Petrosky and Aaron Phillips. I got to tell you right away who would have won. Even before the fight happened, I knew it was going to be Petrosky, because Aaron Phillips, poor Aaron Phillips. I don't know how he got into the Ultimate Fighter. He's from Alaska. He's had 5 fights, and he straight up said, like, there's nowhere to train in Alaska. I learned most of my shit from watching YouTube videos, and I just happened to find this this sheet or this flyer or something to sign up for a fight in Alaska. It's like an amateur fight sort of thing, and he won like his 5 fights, and then they were like, "Hey, you want to fight professionally?" And he's like, "Okay," so he did, and now he has like a 5-3 record. I forget. But yeah, he was way outclassed. Like I said, he learned most of his shit from YouTube videos. So what can you ask for there? Petrovsky, very decorated wrestler. I think he said he's been wrestling since he was like 8 or something like that. Very, very credentialed. He's got the wrestling, the jiu-jitsu. His hands seem okay. He's a middleweight, so he's definitely going to need to improve on that, because there's a lot of guys who will out-technique him in the top 10 for sure. But he looks like a promising prospect, so I'd keep my eye on Petrovsky. Phillips is probably the biggest long shot of all the guys there, because I think this is the first time he's actually got formalized training. And unfortunately, he's on Volkov's team, which when I would watch them, I think Ortega's definitely the better coach. Now, some of that might be because of the editing. You didn't see very much of Volkov. You saw way more of Ortega, but Ortega seems more responsive to like what his fighters are doing and addressing their specific needs, versus Volkov, who just kind of like tells his fighters what to do sort of thing. And to be fair, he had to train Phillips to take on a guy who was way, way better than him. So he was like, all right, so when he throws this big punch from heel, right, you're going to come to the outside and counter. But it's like, yeah, you don't think Ortega's going to be like, oh, you overcommit on your rear, cross. Don't do that shit. So Petrosky didn't. And so he never, Phillips never got the opportunity to try his cool counter technique. And he seemed so excited about it too, but he obviously lost. So Petrosky is in the semifinals. I think Phillips is still banging around. I think he gets a few more fights before he's eliminated, but he's still at the camp. So we're going to see what's going to happen tomorrow. They are going to do a bantamweight matchup next. I don't remember the names, though. It's one of the guy who got picked last, and then one of the other guys who looks really good. So.
I was about to say, you said semifinals, and it caught me off hand, and then I had to remember 2 weight classes. I had to remember that.
Yeah. It's also kind of weird how they do that, but I don't know. But so Petrovsky has pretty much secured his spot, at least in the final, or in the semifinals. I don't know if he's going to make it all the way to finals. There's some pretty good looking guys in there.
I just remember they interviewed Volkanovski probably the day before, and he was like, we filmed it. He was like, Ortega's a punk, and I can't wait to beat him.
Of course he does. Of course he did.
Which was great. I was like, oh, great. I can't wait to watch now. Just because he said that, I'm like, what are we going to see now?
I mean, they're going to scrap. They're going to fucking scrap, especially when you saw some of like the super cuts of like all the things that happened. Now, mind you, this is reality TV. So of course there's going to be like the producers off camera going, all right, no, you're going to go in there and you're going to call him a piece of shit. So you guys fight a little bit because, ratings. So there is some of that going on, but there was definitely like, it felt like there was some legitimate hostility between those two. Like they didn't really like each other. So whatever happens,
I don't think it'll be probably the best moment I've ever seen with the Vanderlei Silva and Chael Sonnen on the the Ultimate Fighter Brazil.
Right.
That was the best. That was the best with them, and because Chael Sonnen just would press his buttons. But I think it's going to be good from just like the teaching standpoint, because I think Ortega and Volkanovski can teach him a lot of different things. Volkanovski is going to be more direct, and I can definitely tell Ortega is going to be more detailed.
Ortega, actually, he said like his first job was being a teacher for MMA, like at his local gym or wherever. So I was like, oh, no wonder he kind of has a knack for this. So makes sense. Makes sense.
And then they're fighting in September. Right. So I believe it is. I think September, because they're thinking September or October, but it looks like it's going to be September. I'm hoping maybe it's on that Teixeira and Jan card.
That'd be dope.
If not, put it on the end of the month when they have another one. But either way, it's going to be good. And then Max Holloway is going to be waiting, because Max Holloway is going to destroy Yair. He's going to destroy Yair Rodrigues.
Oh, no question. No fucking question. Yeah, he's Max Holloway. He's going to win. But I'll keep watching the Ultimate Fighter and clue you guys in on what's going on and who I like. Which is because they all look pretty decent except for Phillips. And this next bantamweight matchup, I think, is going to be a banger. Because from what I can tell, the guy that from Ortega's team, he's like scrappy and he's a brawler, but he's I think he's some version of Russian, like somewhere from that part of the world. So probably some sort of Sambo, which of course that's kind of making its debut into the UFC, and a lot of dominant fighters that Sambo background. The guy he's up against was actually the first pick. He was like one of the really good looking guys that the coaches. It was like, who's going to get that guy first? So it'll be interesting to see. It was the first pick versus the last pick.
So you can check that out at, I believe, every Tuesday night on it's on the
ESPN
app, right?
Plus. Yeah, ESPN Plus. It's like 9:00 Central. So wherever you're at, do the math.
So check that out. We're gonna bring it up every week now as a little topic just to go over, because you're gonna more than likely see a few of these guys. And then to segue over from that, I just interviewed Kyler Phillips yesterday, who came from the Ultimate Fighter on the Stipe Daniel Cormier season, because he was Stipe's first pick, and then a guy fighting on PFL this week, Tyler Diamond, Mr. Bullet, was the first pick for Daniel Cormier. So, which was a nice transition to that. You can check that out next Wednesday. I'll have that posted next Wednesday on the YouTube channel. He's a great guy, and he's going to be fighting Rafael Asuncao July 24th at the UFC Apex. But for the rest of the week, you can check out, I just released my Bellator 260 preview episode. The main event is Douglas Lima, and then Amosov, who is a Sambo guy, so that's a segue in itself too. He is undefeated, trying to gun for Lima's welterweight championship. The co-main event is Jason Jackson against Paul Daly in a catchweight bout, just because it's Paul Daly. That's all he seems to do now is catch weight. And I think soon, because he's signed with Showtime, he's going to be on Showtime's boxing thing, just like the Pauls. I can see him doing that in the next year or two, because he has that capabilities. And then I put out my PFL 4 preview show, which is headlined by Alex Martinez going up against Anthony Showtime Pettis. And then you got the co-main event being Clarissa Shields, coming from the world of boxing, making our debut against Brittany Elkin. So you can check that out on my YouTube channel. PFL 4 will be this Thursday. I think it's at 10 o'clock. I think it's at, and then on ESPN. I think it's 8, but I think it's
AM or PM, because 10 o'clock PM is late. Like, Jesus.
No, I think it's 8, but for some reason I think it said 10, because it's over here in Atlantic City, right where I'm at. I'm actually going to go to Atlantic City the next day.
Oh, 10 o'clock your time, so 9 o'clock my time. Okay, that's not as bad.
Yeah, it's not too bad. And then Bellator 260 will be this Friday. So on Showtime. So definitely check that out. That has a good card in itself. They're starting to put out good main cards now. You got, like I said, you got Lima and Amosov. You got Jackson Daly. You got Aaron Pico against Aiden Lee. And then you got Vanessa Porto coming back. She's a name from Invicta. So she's a woman to look forward to there. But check that out. Both videos, just put them out. I put those out in the beginning of the week so you can get an idea of the matchups. And then this Wednesday or Thursday, like I said before, will be the UFC 263 preview. And then my recaps of UFC, Bellator, and PFL will be late. I'll have them out on Sunday. Well, the UFC one will be normal Monday at 8:30, 8:45 Eastern. But my Bellator and PFL recap shows will be on Sunday, since I'll be away for a bachelor party in Atlantic City Friday, Saturday, and I don't come back to Sunday. So you can look forward to them on Sunday night, as well as you can look forward to us next Monday, as always, every Monday night on YouTube, on Twitch, and on Facebook at 8:30 or 8:40 p.m. Eastern time. You can also, once again, as always, we are Cage by IQ to help you out. Best place for MMA content. Find us on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. And then there's our YouTube handle right there. Subscribe to the channel. We're over at 108 subscribers now. Like I said in the beginning, we're looking to get 200 now. Subscribe to that. Let everybody know about our channel. We want interaction now. If you got any comments or anything you want to let us know about the card that you saw that you thought was interesting, come on, interact with us. We'll bring the comments up and talk to you guys. It's a grand old time. But once again, we are affiliated with the Sports Box. You can find them on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. The Twitter handles are right there below at Sportsbox Show, at Sportsbox Show, and then at the Sportsbox Show for Instagram. And then don't forget to subscribe to their YouTube channel, which is the Sports Show. Check them out. Great group of guys. You can check out all the podcasts during the week. Subscribe to all the channels, and then just check them out as you would us. But once again, I am your host, D-Bake. This is my co-host, Miles Long, and you guys have a wonderful rest of your night.
See you guys.
Talk to you guys later.
Thank you for watching this episode of Cage My IQ on the Sports Box. Please remember to follow us on all of our social media outlets. On Facebook at Sportsbox Show, Twitter at Sportsbox Show, Instagram at The Sportsbox Show. Find us on YouTube and join Outside the Box, our Facebook sports discussion group. The Sports Box is brought to you by our sponsor, Showcase Sports in Hamilton. Showcase Sports for the elite athlete. And also our friends over at CrowdPlay. Download the free CrowdPlay app today and use promo code THEBOX at sign up for 10 free points. Thank you for joining us.